social media is their reality.
Yeah, if I'm feeling down, then I'll look on those things and they'll just make it worse.
They have designed their algorithms and their networks exactly to cater to human pathology in its most extreme forms.
I originally set out to make a documentary that explored the possible positive benefits of diminished or controlled social media use. What I actually uncovered was something far, far darker.
It's impossible to criticize Israel or anything to do with Zionism, or even Jewish people in general, without being called an anti-Semite. And it's what I call a protection racket. It's not to protect Jewish people from discrimination. It's to protect Israel from legitimate criticism and challenge. And it's become so all-encompassing. It is impossible to question or expose or criticize anyone who is Jewish without being called an anti-Semite. The fact that they are doing what you say they're doing, and leaked emails and documents prove it, that's irrelevant. And I'm great example there is George Soros. George Soros is a massive manipulator of events in a stream of countries, and has spent over $30 billion with his open society networks doing it. But if you criticize him, it's not that you're criticizing him because of what he's doing, you're criticizing him because he's Jewish, therefore you're an anti-Semite. This is how the protection racket works. And we've had a situation in America and in Britain this week. And the other thing is too, that the people this, what I call this ultra-Zionist protection racket, target more viciously and vehemently than anyone else are Jewish people who criticize Israel. Because it's more difficult to dub a Jewish person anti-Semitic, although staggeringly they try, they attack Jewish people who criticize Israel more than anyone. And that's happened this week as well. But in America, we've had a politician there, Ilan Omar, who came out to point out that this vast, and it is vast and massively funded lobby group in America called AIPAC, the America-Israel Public Affairs Committee, which sounds very, like a government department or something, a government committee. It's not, it's a lobby group. But it has phenomenal impact and influence on political affairs and politicians in America. One of the things that politicians, when they become politicians, are pressured to do, and Cynthia McKinney, a former congresswoman who has also highlighted this, has described how, in fact, I think Cynthia McKinney is going to be down at this conference in Mexico this week. Hope to see her. She's described how, when she was becoming a congresswoman, and this is what happens with everyone, she was approached by the Israel lobby and asked to sign a pledge of support for Israel and committing herself, even before she's elected, to campaign and support what Israel and AIPAC, in other words, wants in terms of legislation and laws and money. And you might be able to hear the aircraft in the background there at LA Airport. what happened, she says, is that she wouldn't sign the pledge. And if you sign the pledge, these are American politicians supposedly voted for by American citizens and there to serve American citizens. If they sign the pledge, then they get funded, their political campaigns get funded by these APAC and APAC connected networks of organizations. And they get other campaign support in terms of, bodies, if you like. But if you don't sign the pledge, and Cynthia McKinney wouldn't, to her great credit, then not only do you not get money, they'll fund your opponent and do whatever they can to undermine you. And it's almost hilarious. It's tragic, but almost hilarious when you think of all this hysteria about Russia impacting on and influencing American elections, so it's claimed, while Israel and this network, this ultra-Zionist network in America, representing the interests of Israel, is phenomenally influencing elections and influencing policy. This tiny country in the Middle East, this tiny, tiny piece of land, is centrally manipulating events in the political arena of the supposed most powerful country in the world, thousands of miles away. It's bizarre, but of course, if you know the background, it makes sense. So now we come to this lady, Hilal Omar, who came out this week and said that she's a congresswoman from Minnesota, that she was highlighting the fact that AIPAC is manipulating events in American politics. Well, of course they are, but you can't say it because the protection racket won't let you, because fact is no defense to being called anti-Semitic and facing this condemnation. It doesn't matter if what you're saying is true and provably fact. It doesn't matter, as she has found out. And the sad thing is that when this reaction comes, as it always does, when you expose this stuff, these people apologize. I mean, what are you doing? Either what you're saying is true in that case, then you need to say it, or it's not true, in which you don't say it. But if it's true and you say it, don't apologize for it. But this is the power of this lobby for intimidating people. So what she's done is issue this apology, which she says is anti-Semitism is real, and I'm grateful for Jewish allies and colleagues who are educating me on the painful history of anti-Semitic tropes. See, this anti-Semitic trope is another part of the protection racket, because they say people have been accused Jewish people in the past, or Jewish people as a whole, as a community, of manipulating events, and therefore it's anti-Semitic to suggest any Jewish person is doing it. But some of them are. I mean, hello. So you say it. You don't apologize for it. And what they're doing is they're using this anti-Semitic trope now to dub anyone who talks about a global conspiracy or a global cabal, even if they don't mention Jewish people, you're anti-Semitic. Why? Because, well, that's what is said about Jewish people. So it's an anti-Semitic trope, even though you've not mentioned Jewish people. I mean, this is the protection racket, which is not just about, protecting the the ultra-Zionist part of the cabal, it's protecting the entire cabal from criticism, because you criticize any of them, you're anti-Semitic, even though you're not talking about Jewish people, necessarily. Anyway, this is what this lady Omar said. My intention is never to offend my constituents or Jewish Americans as a whole. Well, what's that got to do with it? Either what you're saying is true or not. And if it's true, then if people are offended by it, well, that's their problem, because you're not lying and offending people because you're telling lies. You're just telling the truth. And if people are offended by the truth, well, they just have to get on with it. I mean, what's going on? We have to always be willing to step back and think through criticism, just as I expect people to hear me when others attack me for my identity. This is why I unequivocally apologize. This is your problem. This happens all the time, not just in terms of this protection racket I talk about, but on social media in general. You'll get people like celebrities or politicians, they'll say something which is true and supportable, and then the Twitter storm comes because it's not saying what you're supposed to say, and instead of saying, well, it's true, so if you don't like it, we'll do the other thing, but it's true, I'm not going to apologize for saying something that's true, or I'm not going to apologize for having an opinion. But instead they apologize because they intimidated, and they worry about image and all that stuff. Well, once you worry about image, it's finished, because that's going to trump you saying what you believe is right and not apologizing for it. Anyway, the story in front of me now goes on. Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has published an apology for making self-evident observations about the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC, an immensely influential lobbying firm, which, like all lobbying firms, works to influence government policy towards a specific agenda, in this case in the interest of the Israeli government, the far-right Israeli government, as it turns out. She issued an apology after hours upon hours of shrill, hysterical, shrieking accusations of anti-Semitism from the entire establishment political media class. If you're lucky enough to have been away from Jack Dorsey's insufferable hell site, Twitter, he's talking about obviously, for the last 24 hours, I'll type out a very quick recap, this story said, of the shit show, the story calls it, for the which you are free to scroll past or read about in more depth by clicking the hyperlink that's there. But it all started when Glenn Greenwald, the journalist, criticized the Republican Party leader, the GOP leader, as they call him, Kevin McCarthy, for threatening Omar and fellow first-term Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib if they didn't stop speaking out about the behaviors of the Israel government, in which Greenwald said, it's stunning how much time US political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking free speech rights of Americans. Tell me about it. Omar retweeted Greenwald's post with the comment, it's all about the Benjamins, baby, meaning $100 bills. Everyone lost their head over a topic that is associated with Jewishness being mentioned in the same breath as a comment about money, despite the self-evident fact that using money to influence policy is precisely the thing that lobby groups do. You see, this is the point. If what you're saying is true, don't apologize. And so people back off. And when they back off, it's just adding to the power of the lobby that can then, put another notch on the bedpost, if you like, of forcing someone to their knees. And in the same mode this week, we've had a similar story in Britain. Sarah Lee Whitson, the head of Human Rights Watch Middle East Division, was fiercely attacked by anti-Palestinian groups and pundits this week. She had shared a posting on the manufactured Labour anti-Labour Party, for people around the world, anti-Semitism crisis story. And the tweet, including an article from last year in which it was reported or it was said that there was clear Israeli interference in British politics, which there is. This hysteria about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party is the protection racket, pressuring the Labour Party to accept this vastly expanded new definition of anti-Semitism, which includes criticism of Israel, which is all what it's about. It's just another document for the protection racket. It's nothing to do with Jewish people. You know, if it was about protecting Jewish people from criticism and abuse, then the ultra-Zionist lobby wouldn't be so abusive against Jewish people that don't agree with it. And so this lady has also been subjected to the usual anti-Semitic bombardment. And it's used not only to attack the people involved, it's used to be a warning to anyone else. This is what happens if you criticize Israel or the ultra-Zionist lobby. Of course, they've been attacking me for years, and they're getting more and more hysterical. I mean, it's extraordinary, some of the things now. There's an Australian Labor politician of the Australian Labor Party who's been campaigning on demanding that my visa to Australia is revoked for this speaking tour in about 2 weeks. And one of the things he said, and the media have printed it without even asking me, he said that I am openly campaigning for Holocaust denial to be taught in schools. Well, you'd think I'd have heard of that, wouldn't you? You'd think I'd have come across that, but I haven't, because I'm not. And then there was an article this week in the Jewish Chronicle in Britain, which is edited by a guy called Jonathan Pollard. Jonathan Pollard was the man who wrote an article in the British Daily Mail last year, saying that political correctness was destroying free speech and we've got to have free speech. Well, I wrote to him and I said, well, congratulations on the article, basically. I agree with you. But this means then that you condemn all these ultra-Zionist groups, hate groups, I call them, because they try to get people to hate their targets. You're condemning them for trying to get public meetings banned. And of course, he never replied because he couldn't say, yes, I do. And he couldn't say, no, I'm not. No, I won't, because that would show him to be the hypocrite that he is. Anyway, his paper wrote an article this week having a go at me and linking it to someone who's a member of the Labour Party. I'll come to that in a second. And this article said that I call Jewish people reptiles. Well, again, you'd have thought I'd have heard about that, wouldn't you? But I haven't, because I don't. But they just make it up. And the more you won't get down on your knees, and that'll be the bloody day, and you just keep putting out fact, and you don't apologize for it. When we start apologizing for fact, then we are in real trouble. So they get more and more desperate. So they accuse you of more and more ludicrous things in a desperate effort to discredit you. And this article in the Jewish Chronicle this week was targeting a guy who is the chair of a Labour Party constituency, Labour group, which has been pushing basically a vote of or a motion of no confidence in the MP, the Labour MP for that constituency, who happens to be Jewish. And of course, instead of accepting that the reason that the motion of no confidence was being pushed was that this Labour MP has been criticising the party leader and really been active in this anti-Semitic hysteria being hurled at the Labour Party. But you can't do that, you see. You can't have any other reason for having motions of no confidence in a Jewish MP other than you're anti-Semitic. Well, this chair of this constituency group within the Labour Party is Jewish. But it's like I say, this is not about Jewish people. It's about exploiting and weaponizing the term anti-Semitic to stop criticism of Israel and this ultra-Zionist network. And I, for one, am not going to A, keep quiet about it, and B, apologize for speaking the bloody obvious. And I really do wish that people wouldn't back off and start getting on their knees, because that just gives power to this whole protection racket, and it's ramping up and getting more and more extreme, where you can't say anything about anyone who's Jewish or running Israel because you're an anti-Semite. And it's so blatantly obvious what the game is. And, well, there's someone here won't be apologizing for speaking fact, that's for sure.